Yes, light on the face is very much required.
Yeah, and Mr. Roy, I can't see your video.
Okay, let me also tell you all
Me?
members that
Hello,
now we have
everybody.
totally. Hello, who is this?
Got it, Mr. Roy. Your video is intermittent. It's
Some
coming
range
and going.
issues here. Am I audible?
Who is speaking? Hello, please
There is
identify
a blank
yourself.
screen. There is a blank screen there. Uh, who's this? Okay, Mr. Dingra.
The live streaming has started, doctor.
Oh, wonderful. Anybody can see it on Facebook or can you
Yeah,
check?
on YouTube it is visible. We can see you there.
Oh, wonderful. What about
Can someone share
Facebook?
the link on the group, please? Like the streaming link.
Facebook.
Facebook,
Sir, now
Juliana,
you are
please
in
check.
work, sir. I will give us.
Nikisha, keep a watch on whoever is switching off the video.
I'm doing that. I'm policing it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. 2 times warning and then out.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Now we have how many people? 34 people in.
Mr. Sanjay
And
Mishra, video, please.
and 34 people have come in, and it is 6:46. I think we will wait for. We'll wait for the time till Dr. Tharoor comes in. We'll wait for the time till Dr. Tharoor comes in. Oh, what is this now? Facebook? Is this on
It's live
Facebook?
on YouTube.
Ah, okay. Wonderful. Shankar, have you put me back?
Yes, sir. Already you are ours, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll make Frida as co-host.
Okay.
So, Frida, please.
Yes.
1 minute, let me admit
Me also.
Paul Kushi. Okay, just making Frida as the co-host. In case there is any issues, you can also contact her. Making Frida co-host. Okay, done. Dr. Mr. John Koshi should have come in now. We are waiting for him, and after that, Dr. Tharoor will come in. Okay, I just wanted to inform you all that we are totally now, we have, apart from the IOC main group, we have 9 chapters of IOC now. And after the meeting with Dr. Tharoor, I would like all of you who have the time to stay back because we would like to discuss something else too, which I will reveal after the meeting when we start with the meeting for the members of IOC. Mr. Sanjay Mishra, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Please,
Fine.
would you like to introduce yourself while we wait for Dr. Tharoor?
Yeah, I'm Sanjay Mishra. I used to work with Mr. Ajit Kumar. We were together in ITDC. Now
Excuse
I'm
me.
at Supreme Court
Excuse
as a
me.
lawyer.
Mr. Manot is waiting to be admitted.
Who?
Mr. Manot, Sanket Manot.
Yeah, already admitted him.
Okay.
Okay, Ajit?
Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, welcome.
Welcome.
Anybody else who has not introduced themselves? Roy Maniji.
Hi, doctor. Am I
Hi.
audible? I
Hi.
am in a slightly difficult place and all.
Hello.
So range is also a bit low. Am I audible?
Okay.
Yeah, you are.
Thank
Yes,
God.
you're audible.
Okay.
Hi all. Nice to meet you all here.
I think it'll get okay. I can see you, but you are unmuted yourself. That's why I mean muted yourself.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, now you are unmuted.
Hi, Doc.
Sure.
Hello everyone, this is Paul.
Shall I leave and exit and come back again?
Yeah, no problem. Right.
Okay, I'll just join.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get that.
Hello, doctor.
Yeah, please come because I'm not able to hear anything.
Hello. Who's talking? Please identify. Because so many people on the screen now.
Hi,
Let
Lalit.
us see if
Who's
the
talking?
system audio is working.
Shall I unmute? I mean, mute everyone and then whoever is talking.
Raise your hand.
Coming?
Whoever wants to
Yeah.
talk, raise your hand.
That will be better.
Yes,
The thing
do
is
that,
that
do that,
6:45 the entry
doctor.
is closed.
An iPhone there. There's an iPhone.
Make special alarm.
Okay, whoever wants to talk, unmute and talk. Somebody else with iPhone is waiting. I don't know who is this now. Could it be Mr. John Kushi? I'm taking a risk here. I'm admitting him.
Let's check it with Rajiv Gowda. Or?
No, it's not Rajiv Gowda. Let me see. Hi, Ayappan.
Hi.
Okay, iPhone is connecting. Let me see who it is. Rohit Kannan. Very.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Rohit.
This is Lalit Oswal.
Oh, Lalit Oswal. Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm visible there.
Yeah, wonderful to have you here, Lalit. Who's coming with the iPhone, please identify yourself. The person with iPhone, please identify. Person with iPhone, please identify.
Sir, Murthy from Bangalore.
Haha, Murthy, last time also you did this. That's why you were denied entry. I just took a chance. Put your name on the.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
that you, yeah, last time you remember you were kept in the waiting room. You were not allowed entry.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah, and this time also it would have happened, but I just took a risk thinking you are Mr. John Koshi.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, please change your name. Hi, Paul Koshi. Hi, unmute and talk.
Hello sir, happy to be here with you.
Wonderful to have you. How's everything in Bangalore?
Not too good.
Oh, why? Because of Corona.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the same scene everywhere, no?
Yeah. Serious
Yes,
issues on state revenues.
I know. Saraja, put on your video, please. Rohit, put on your video.
Ajit, the Facebook link is apparently not working. YouTube is fine.
Who's talking?
Jennifer.
Sorry?
Jennifer was telling something.
Okay. Jennifer, when you're talking, just say because we're not able
Jennifer.
to make out. Yeah, hi, Jennifer. Please tell.
Okay, sorry. Hi, the Facebook link apparently is not working live. The YouTube
Okay.
is perfectly okay. That's
Shankar, can you
feedback
check?
I was given.
Shankar, can you please check?
Sorry, sir. What happened, sir?
And Murthy, please change your name from iPhone
Dr. Kannan, video, please.
and put your video on. Otherwise, you risk being removed, please, because we still don't know it is you.
Yeah, so
And Geeta,
I think
hi Geeta Saini, you can unmute yourself and talk.
Chetan here. The Facebook link doesn't seem to be working. I'm just trying it on my phone. It's just
Sorry,
hanging up. It's not working. Right. So
I will
who's
check.
talking, please?
I said Chetan here.
Chetan, sir, I will check
Okay.
it.
Yeah. And the Facebook link, as somebody was just mentioning, is not working. I just tried it on my phone, and you can see it's not working. It's not loading itself. Right?
Just a second, sir. I will check it. Just a second, I will check it.
Shankar, please check.
Yeah.
Murthy, please change your name back. Once Dr. Tharoor is coming, I will be removing anybody without the name.
I'm not sure how to change that.
Okay.
You have to log out and log in again with the name.
Yeah, try that.
So we tried the login is through the meeting ID and password.
Yeah.
But it didn't ask for the name anywhere, sir.
No, you have to put the name
here,
yourself.
Mario here.
No,
Mario
name
here.
is
You can
already
just click
there.
the three
I think the
dots
host
in the
can
top
do it for you.
right corner
Thank you so much.
and rename.
Okay.
Right corner of Zoom.
no, anyone can do that. If you click on the participant option,
Yeah,
your
correct.
name will be
Okay.
visible there.
The
So click on your
participants you
name.
can absolutely.
There is a rename option.
BS, right? Your initial is BS, right?
BS, Bangalore, Singapore. BS Murthy.
Done. I've done it.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And now please come on the video, not the name. Come with your video on. I'm trying to call Mr. John Koshi. Anybody who has not identified themselves, Murthy, you can start, please. Introduce yourself.
Good evening. This is BS Murthy, AIPC, IOC, Bangalore.
Wonderful. Anybody else, please, who has not introduced themselves?
Hello guys, I'm Rohit Borana. I'm from Pune. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Juliana Leslie from Mumbai IOC.
Hi everyone, this is Amit Kumar from IOC Bangalore. Thank you.
Guys, we have some more time and while we are waiting for Dr. Tharoor to come. So complete your introductions who has not done it.
Hello, everybody. I am Prabharan, Coimbatore advocate. It is my first IOC meeting, and I congratulate Dr. Ajit Kumar, sir.
But Prabhakaran, you've been there for a long time, right?
It's my first meeting, sir.
No, in IOC you've been for some time, right?
Yes, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Many years.
You are coordinating all Congress workers for a long time.
Okay.
In social media.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, anybody else? We have another 3 minutes.
Hi,
I'm
my name is
Saroja.
Abhay and I'm from Bombay.
Who is talking, please?
Me here, Abhay. Raising my hand.
Abhay. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, go
my
ahead,
name is
Abhay.
Abhay. I'm from Bombay. And this is my first meeting that I'm
Wonderful.
attending. So,
Like I mentioned, all of you please stay back after Dr. Tharoor's meeting because then we can talk in detail. Hello. Hi, Mr. Koshi. You're also joining, right? I will be watching from the stream. Okay. Joining in 2 minutes. Keep an eye out for his handle joining the Zoom when he does. Okay. Signing as SHASHI Tharoor. Okay, wonderful. Waiting for him. All of us are here and waiting. Understood. He'll be there in 2 minutes. Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. John Koshi was on the line. He said Dr. Tharoor is joining us in 2 minutes. Exactly at 7.
See that it's a Facebook working on, sir. Ajit sir, this is Shankar working on Facebook.
Sorry, Shankar?
It's working. Facebook's not working on somebody say. It's working. Live is going on.
It is live? Okay, thank you. And Itisha, can you take screenshots of all the people so we know who all are coming? I think we
have already done it and updated it to our ID of IOC main group.
keep updating. Keep updating as soon as Dr. Tharoor comes in.
I'll do that.
You can do that. And we had about 48 registrations confirmed. 38 have come in.
Yes.
We need to identify who are the 10 people who have not joined, who have blocked somebody else's chances. And for sure, next Zoom meeting they will not be allowed in. That's it. I mean, they have taken up somebody else's space because we had closed the registrations at 50.
Mr. Roy and Mr. Sadek, please switch on your video.
Hi, Royji. Good to see your face.
Yeah, done. Hi, doctor. Good to see you.
After a long time, huh?
After After a long time. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Where are you now? Jaipur?
Right now in Mangalore.
Mangalore, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I did send you a message sometime back.
Oh, really? Then I must have
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah, yeah.
I missed it. Sorry.
No issues.
But good to have you. Good
This
to see you.
is Jennifer. Someone is watching the Zoom live on YouTube, needs to mute themselves because it's distorting the sound.
Itisha, keep a watch on people who are still not put the video on.
Yes, sure. Mr. Sanjay Mishra, please mute yourself.
It's bad manners on Zoom not to have your video on. Plus a security risk.
That's true.
So why we wait for, okay, Dr. Tharoor has just come in, admitting him. Let's all welcome him.
Good evening, Dr.
Dr. Tharoor, welcome.
Good evening,
Good evening, Dr. Tharoor. So nice to have you with us.
Good evening,
We
Dr.
have
Tharoor.
already given your introduction. You don't need an introduction from anyone. So we've just conveyed it on the group.
Are you recording this?
Sorry?
Shall we record this?
Yes.
You're live on YouTube.
Live on YouTube and Facebook.
Excellent. All right. I didn't realize all that, so I don't think I publicized it on my account. But I'll try and do that quickly. But we already are live, are we?
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful,
Yes.
Dr. Tharoor. And once again, welcoming you again. And we will start off with the first question from Madhura Prasad.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hello,
Good evening,
Madhura.
everyone. Hi, how are you, sir?
Very well,
You, as
thanks.
usual, you are looking really great.
That's very kind.
I'm a huge fan of your. I'm a huge fan of yours. So here goes my first question, and thank you so much for allowing me to ask question to you. So
Pleasure.
my first question is, how can we create a brand out of the Congress party and all that it stands for to build a strong opposition at this point of time? Who, according to you, should be represented as the face of Congress? This is my question, sir.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into the business of who, because I think that's a collective decision the party must make. But I think the question of the brand has really been laid down for now 135 years. What does the Congress stand for? It seems to me that if we all accept that there are certain basic principles and values that have been associated with this party since the very beginning of its existence. It's a party that respects very much liberal constitutionalism, the party that serves the objectives of inclusion, a party that recognizes the value and the principles of pluralism in India. In other words, of all religious communities, all castes, all languages, all groups coming together. A party which at the same time has evolved in many ways in the course of its experience in politics, and come up with a retuned vision that's relevant for the 21st century. And the ideology of the Congress, of an inclusive and progressive party that's liberal and centrist in its orientation, that's committed to social justice and individual freedoms, patriotic in its determination to protect national security and also to promote human security. All of this is the brand of the Congress, and I believe it has great appeal if it's projected properly in our country. But who should do the projecting? All of us should. But when you say who in particular should lead it, my short answer is there are well-established processes. I don't think it's particularly fair to burden Sonia Gandhi ji, who has served with such distinction for such a long time, with the renewed responsibility of this position. So mechanisms must be established to find somebody else who can carry the burden. But ultimately, I'm a great fan of Rahul Gandhi's 2014 election slogan, which said, "Main nahi hum." The Congress has always distinguished itself from this one-man army, one-man leadership that the BJP is offering. You know, the hero on the white stallion with the upraised sword who says he knows all the answers, can solve all the problems. And we've seen how badly that's worked out in the last 6 years. Whereas what the Congress offers is actually collective leadership, a very deep bench strength of qualified, experienced leaders, each in their own fields across the country and with tremendous knowledge and expertise that they can put to the service of the nation. That's what the Congress is and should be all about, and that's the brand that I'd like to put forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madhura.
Nikhil Shah.
Good evening, sir. My name is Nikhil Shah. I am from Pune.
Hi,
And my question is, how do we sensitize the millennials to make them aware of the benefit of open-minded thinking as against the RSS religious and regressive indoctrination? Many are also unaware of the stellar pre-independence role of the INC in forging religious unity.
This is a very important question, Nikhil, because in fact it goes to the heart of the dilemma that we are facing in the country. Is that the core idea of India as a country for everyone, which was the basis of our nationalist movement for essentially 62 years, if you like, before independence came, and which was the basis of the constitution written by such great stalwarts as Dr. Ambedkar, Rajendra Prasad, Jawaharlal Nehru, and others. This core idea is fundamentally threatened by a group of people who themselves did not participate in the nationalist movement. We must not forget that today, for all their chest-thumping advocacy of nationalism against the British, this segment of political opinion in India was essentially absent. The RSS, of course, only exists from 1925, but there was a Hindu Mahasabha before that. And the Jansangh came in only after independence. But during the independence struggle, the people who saw India as a Hindu Rashtra were simply staying away from the freedom struggle, and between 25 and 47 were quite willing to collaborate with the British. For example, when the Congress leaders went into jail during the Quit India movement, many of the Hindu Mahasabha and RSS background people joined the Muslim League to form governments collaborating with the British, despite the fact that they had lost the elections to the Congress. So I must say that the interpretation of what India is all about is today being done by the people least qualified to speak for India, because they have not participated in the forging of the Indian identity. And it worries me very much that they have taken this idea based on their own misreading of history, that somehow we are a Hindu nation that has been oppressed and humiliated by non-Hindus for too long, and the time has finally come for the Hindus to reassert themselves, and BJP and the RSS are the instruments to do this, and they want to lead this country in a particular direction. This will destroy India. It will destroy India internally, because obviously there are many people, certainly the non-Hindus, but also many Hindus, who are going to reject this very narrow and, I must say, biased interpretation of what India is all about. But internationally, such an approach has no appeal. We already saw that the Islamophobia being expressed in India by the ruling party establishment during the CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act issue, that Islamophobia created a severe backlash in the Arab Gulf, where millions of our fellow Indians are working. And these people are saying, why should we tolerate people from a country which speaks so ill of our faith and our country? So India has been accepted around the world as a rare country where all faiths coexist, have equal rights, and flourish. And that is being undermined by these people who are destroying India's unity in the name of one religion. And that's why I believe it's very important to educate people. Now, I have written all this in very many books, so I hope that my contribution is in the realm of ideas. But many of you need to go out also through your organizations, through civil society, and get the message across to young people that they should not be misled by such people who have done nothing to win India the independence that they now claim to be celebrating as true nationalists.
Thank you, sir.
Roy Maniji.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Myself, Abraham Roy Mani. I am National General Secretary of the Youth Congress,
Oh,
in
hi.
charge of Rajasthan and Pondicherry.
Excellent.
Hi, sir. I am from Mumbai. Sir, my question was that in this age of identity and aspirational politics, how do we convince the youth about our ideology, the idea of India, which you just mentioned? How do you suggest we go about convincing the youth about this ideology of our party?
Well, frankly, the
Particularly
only way
for Youth Congress, you can give us something in particular which we may follow.
Well, Youth Congress actually is doing a good job, and I think the formula that I'm seeing is very good. Number one, they are out with the public, with the young people in the streets, in public demonstrations, and so on. And that, to my mind, is extremely important. Secondly, what I'm seeing is that they are also taking up issues that are not strictly speaking purely political issues. So they're taking up issues that affect the well-being of people. I'll give one example. Just a few days ago, I got a message saying that they had a child who could not get admission to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And I actually reached out to one of the Delhi MPs. All the Delhi MPs are BJP. One of them is a good friend of mine, whom I knew as a cricketer, Gautam Gambhir. And I said, listen, as a Delhi MP, you can intervene in this matter and you should do it. So he tried to intervene. But by then, the Youth Congress had actually not only got involved, they had had the smarts to actually get the kid admitted and to guarantee that they would pay the child's bills. And this has been a tremendous gesture. The young parents of that child say, wow, what a fabulous group the Youth Congress is, and they've issued their public thanks. So, in other words, there are ways in which you make yourself attractive to people by helping them when they need help. And that, to my mind, has been a very, very good achievement by the Youth Congress. This is one example, but I'm sure there are very many more in every state. The other thing is, of course, to reach young people on the methods that they use. So, for example, I'm told that young people seem to prefer Instagram to other forms of social media like Twitter and Facebook. So get out on Instagram, get your message out there. When we do things like discussions like this, try and get some of the clips of these answers circulated into forums where young people would hear them. I think it's extremely important that we try and actually ensure that the young people get our message. Now, if after getting our message they reject it or they don't agree with it, then that's our failing. And then there's no point saying that we couldn't convince them, because clearly we didn't try well enough or hard enough. But if we are prepared to make the real effort, I believe we have a very good message that is likely to actually go in and get involved with them and persuade them. I beg your pardon.
Okay, Abhay Agarwal.
Dr. Ajit, if I may interrupt.
Hi, so my name is Abhay Agarwal. I'm from Bombay. My question is, do you think we need to adopt or consider adopting the American system of primary elections, given that we are so given that we are so susceptible to dynastic politics? And if not, then do you think we need to do something to actively democratize the selection of our party leaders and candidates?
Well, those are two different issues. I mean, the primary election concept, frankly, works in a presidential system where people are choosing individuals to represent their party and then choosing individuals to fight an election as individuals. I mean, though there is a party system, every voter, I mean, you don't actually have to be a paid up member of the Democratic or Republican Party. Every voter in registering to vote gets to indicate which party's primaries they wish to vote in, whether or not they're members. And then when, let's say, the Democratic Party holds a primary, everyone who's registered to vote in the Democratic primary, which is literally very often 50 to 60% of the electorate, they can go out and vote. Now, in India, frankly, I'm a great fan of all forms of increased democracy. But the problem is that in India, we have a different system. First of all, ours is a parliamentary system where the party is what you're voting for and not the individual. In America, for example, you can be somebody without much experience in the party, even be a first-term senator and be elected president like Barack Obama because of your appeal to the general electorate. Whereas in our country, in our system, they want you to be somebody chosen by the party. And therefore, only registered party members would be able to participate in such a primary. So it would not be like the American system. Secondly, if you were to have party members, the question is you need to have a very reliable, secure, verified database of party members. This, I'm told by veterans in the party, has not always been possible. A third concern that many of us have is that sometimes some of our colleagues with deeper pockets are able to often enroll members and perhaps have more resources deployed in contesting internal elections than others. And therefore, for example, one of the criticisms I've heard of the Youth Congress elections, Abhay, is the concern that they've turned out to be divisive, that in some states even fistfights have broken out between candidates and so on. So there seems to be an increasing disenchantment between, of people in our country. There seems to be a bit of a disenchantment with the idea of elections within the parties. I'd like to get there. I've already expressed a wish within my group, the All India Professionals Congress, that we should move to an election model fairly quickly, and we should do so because we have a smaller, verified, confirmed membership, which can therefore truly vote in its own preferences. And I will need, of course, the blessings of the party to do it, because we are a department of the AICC, and I don't want to disrupt the overall approach of the party. But I will say to you that as far as the way in which we are functioning is concerned, whether you like elections or not, and I know many colleagues whom I respect in the party who don't like elections for the reasons I've given you, it is important, however, that merit and talent be recognized. We must ensure that whatever mechanism is chosen to make either the appointments of people or the renewals or reappointments or dismissals of people at any level in the organization, that we should do this through a process that rewards merit, performance, talent, and not merely proximity to one or two people at the top. And that's as far as I can go right now, Abhay, because obviously the whole party will have to decide how to move forward. But that would be my preference. The primary system has its attractions, but it has limitations that we've talked about, so I won't repeat them.
Rita?
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Tharoor.
Good
This
evening.
is Frida from Mumbai.
Hi.
My
Rita.
question to you- my
Louder,
question-
audio louder, please. Audio louder.
Yeah. Good evening, Dr. Tharoor. This is Frida from Mumbai. My question to you is, what are your four main takeaways from the period of 2014 to 2019? And what did the Congress fail to learn and effectively counter from it?
Okay. Ajit, sorry, I've just received a message that during the live feed, only you are visible, I am not, or the speaker is not visible. So you
Okay.
can make sure that my picture comes back into the frame.
Shankar, can you take care of that?
Ajit sir, you can change the speaker view. It's gallery view. You can change the speaker view. You only host, you can do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Rohit Malviya, for pointing that out. Frida, forgive me because of that. Can you repeat your question in brief?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is it done? Shankar?
Just a second, sir. I will check it up, sir.
Yeah, please check. Please check on that.
Go ahead,
Thank
Frida.
you. Thank you, Rohit.
Right. So, Dr. Tharoor, I would like to know what are your four main takeaways from the period of 2014 to 2019, and what did the Congress fail to learn and effectively counter from it?
Gosh, that's an awful lot to address. I think that 2014 to 19 was, of course, in many ways, a period of failure on the part of the government. I say this not merely as an opposition MP, but because there are objective reasons for saying that. The economy. As you know, many people voted for Mr. Modi in 2014 because of his statements about the economy. And unfortunately, we actually never saw the kind of progress I was expected. And I actually thought that if people were to vote in their economic self-interest, Mr. Modi would lose in 2019. I said, for example, why would a young man who voted for Mr. Modi in 2014 because he thought he'd get a job, why would he now vote for Mr. Modi in 2019 when he still doesn't have a job? And all the other initiatives grandly announced by Mr. Modi relating to the economy, Make in India, Stand Up India, Start Up India, all of those had failed to take off and make any difference to either GDP growth, investment figures, or employment figures. And by the time of the 2019 elections, in fact, our unemployment figures were the worst since 1974. So that's the first big takeaway, that the government had failed dramatically economically. It had also failed colossally in foreign policy. Mr. Modi zipped around the world, traveled extensively, but there were no tangible results that could be pointed to. And all our relationships, Pakistan, China, the neighborhood, were in bad trouble. And that's become even more apparent 1 year later. But two other takeaways would be one, that we may have underestimated the impact of national security in the northern part of the country, particularly in 2019 in the aftermath of the Pulwama attack and the Balakot strike. The psyche of the voter was more vulnerable to persuasion that the BJP would be the tough, muscular, decisive party looking after national security, whereas in fact its own track record in this regard has been extremely poor. And the other thing I think we underestimated was the micro projects in the villages had a much, much greater impact than the macro issues like the devastation caused by demonetization, rising unemployment, economic failure, slowing GDP growth, all of those things that we saw as the big problems facing the country were overcome by the government's ability to construct toilets in villages in the north in particular. The south, most villages have toilets, but in the north, and to, for example, deliver cooking gas for women cooking in closed kitchens. Now, there were real flaws with all of this. Many of the toilets don't have running water, and as a result, many are merely being used as storehouses. Many of the gas cylinders, the people couldn't afford refills, and therefore were using them only for special occasions, but cooking in their chullas the rest of the time. So there were flaws, but I think there was a beat we missed here in not focusing on those and focusing on the bigger picture, which somehow didn't sufficiently affect the voters. And finally, I think we have to accept that the BJP has to be given credit for being able to deflect the nation's attention from their evident failures. They ran throughout the 4 or 5 years masterful campaigns of public relations, social media, advertising, messaging. They actually managed to spend a colossal amount of money. It's been estimated they spent more than all the other political parties in India put together in the 2019 elections. And all of this, one can say it's the unprincipled wielding of money power. Unprincipled, I mean, one example of the electoral bonds, at least 95% of which went only to one party, the BJP, and yet which concealed the provenance of the donors. So all of this suggests to me that there's a lot the BJP got right that they should not have been allowed to get away with. What lessons have been learned? I think we all have to learn lessons from this, and we have to fight them on those areas where we were not able to succeed in the fight earlier.
Amit Kumar? Amit?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
I'll question.
Thanks, Dr.
Has he come in? Okay. What is your opinion, Dr. Tharoor, on the fact that dependency on regional coalitions weaken the Congress and all it holds? Instead, shouldn't greater autonomy be given to state leaders in their respective states?
Yeah, I honestly think there is no one-size-fits-all answer to that question. There are states where we have to honestly acknowledge we can't go it alone, and that we need to work with like-minded parties to actually get the results that we need. But there are states where going in for coalitions may have undermined our capacity to win in our own right in some places. But the decisions should be based on local realities and the judgment of local leaders. Also, who we ally with, who we don't ally with, what the local themes are. when it comes to state assembly elections, I am not in favor of all these decisions being taken in Delhi. We should empower state leadership much more and as much as possible. I would add that in my own experience, what I've seen is that the Congress is very well organized, very effective, very well connected in the grassroots in some places, and the almost exact opposite of that in other places. So we must have the honesty to look at each place and judge for ourselves, where do we have the capacity to contest on our own? Because it may be not only in an entire state, but in one part of a state that we really have the local leadership and the strength, and other parts we don't. We're coming up with some of these choices in the Bihar elections, which are expected to be in October, and the Bengal elections, which are expected to be in January. So there should be an opportunity for us to make these calls strategically, so that we decide whether we need alliances, who we need alliances with, where we must contest because we have the strength, where we must recognize that other strength is better. And if we do this effectively, we will be able to turn the tables. Don't forget that at least half a dozen assembly elections, we have rebounded well, both before and after the 2019 elections. So let us not generalize from the Lok Sabha setback that we are completely on the back foot. I believe we do have the capacity. And I would say that we should make a state-by-state decision, and sometimes within a state, a region-by-region decision as to where we need allies and where we don't. But nationally, no question, we need a front of all the like-minded parties that are prepared to stand up against the BJP.
Rohit?
Good evening, sir. This is Rohit Burana from Pune. I have a question. Why are we currently, we look like a weak opposition. We don't protest on so many issues that BJP has given us on plate. And also I would like to question, we have done nothing to counter the fake news that the BJP is spreading against us.
Such as, give me an example.
They talk about the Gandhi family or the Nehru family. They say that, it's a Muslim family. So it has created a negative image across India. The Hindu voters have, alienated from us because we have never spoken about it or never countered about it.
Okay, well, I mean, to be honest, that to me, that last example you gave, Rohit, is frankly, I mean, most educated people laugh at that theory. So I'm surprised you tell me it's done that much damage. But because, there's just so much evidence of the family origins, background, functioning, etc., of the Nehrus, the family tree is so clearly available that it's quite absurd that the BJP can make such a nonsensical charge as if they would have any interest in concealing their identity. That's absurd. And there are books, there are biographies by objective, even foreign writers who have no interest in peddling any myths about Nehru Gandhi. This is purely the junk that goes around in WhatsApp. Now, let me just say in all fairness, they're better organized on WhatsApp with their live factory because they have had first mover advantage and they have built up, as we know from revelations, they have some very large number, 3 lakh WhatsApp groups or something, each one with 256 people, targeted messaging, which sends out all these lies. And you're right, we are nowhere in that league. And it's partially because these people are paid to do this. I mean, there are, if you read Swati Chaturvedi's book, I Am a Troll, they actually have the budget to pay people to do nothing else all day but to troll the Congress and to function. And the sad truth is that in our country, there are people available to do this, whether they believe it or not. But equally, the BJP has the money to waste in this kind of totally unproductive and negative, destructive activity. We don't have that kind of money, let's face it. And frankly, when you're out of power, the sources of funding are very minimal. We can barely get some adequate stuff to fight elections with rather than to lead our daily political life. I mean, I have to finance my own politics and run my party offices in Trivandrum and here through the proceeds of my writing. I'm not able to do it by sort of volunteer political contributions. They don't exist. And frankly, I'm also not the kind of guy who knows how to ask for them, but that's another matter. But I would challenge your contention that the Congress has not been an effective opposition for two reasons. Number one, we do offer an alternate vision of the idea of India, as I mentioned in the answer to the first question, which is an inclusive and pluralist vision that truly reflects the heart and soul of the country. And we do it all the time in our statements. If you look at the social media accounts of the Congress, if you look at Congress spokespeople on television, if you look at speeches made by Congress leaders anywhere in the country, the messaging has been pretty clear. Now, since COVID, normal political activity obviously has been severely restricted. And in those circumstances, excuse me, what we have been reduced to is to campaign virtually on the internet, on social media, on sound bites, little videos, and so on. But that, very frankly, who has done it better than us? Rahul Gandhi's regular messages, regular discussions, regular attacks. I don't think there's anybody else who's done that. And if you look seriously at the opposition in the country, the one voluble voice that we're hearing on any issue is that of the Congress. And I would say proudly that the Congress in the shape of Rahul Gandhi raised the issue of the need for an earlier COVID lockdown, the 12th of February on the record. We've got definitely Congress the first to raise the issue of the migrant workers when it happened. We've got Congress talking about the fiscal stimulus when it happened. We've got Congress talking, before it happened, it was prompting the government eventually to do it. We've had the Congress on the record talking about the need for getting money into the Jan Dhan accounts and helping people, the poor people of the country, increase their purchasing power, which has still not been done by the government. We've had Congress raising the China issue throughout, speaking courageously about the government's lies, frankly, and failures, and their failure to tell the truth to the nation about what's been happening on the border. So in all of these respects, the Congress has been exactly the robust opposition that you want to see. Now, if we were in an environment where you could say these things not only virtually, but also on the streets in demonstrations outside the various ministries or party headquarters or dharnas and street corner rallies, we would have done it, but we can't. It would be irresponsible to call 1,000 people to a rally because they'll infect each other with COVID. And frankly, it's also against the law right now during the lockdown in most parts of the country. So don't judge the Congress as a failed opposition on the grounds that you're not seeing too much of us for the last 4 months. If you are on the computer, on virtual media, on television, you will get, in my view, a good sense of the strong messaging the Congress has been putting out. And I challenge you to identify any other opposition party that has done a fraction of what we have been able to do.
Lalit.
Good evening, sir. Sir, myself Lalit Osu from Pune.
Hi, Lalit.
Sir, my question is, how do we start working on ground? We are not just amplifying Modi government's failures on China, COVID-19 migrant workers crisis, but increasing awareness of the masses that they are being fed falsehood.
Well, to be honest, what our grassroots workers are able to do in terms of individual contacts, they should be doing already. But there are very severe limitations. And right now, COVID is not yet behind us. I'll give you an example. Congress was quite active running around in Kerala. And they were active also because Kerala was said to have flattened the curve early on. So they felt it was relatively safe. Now, the curve has again risen and we are getting 1,000 cases a day. In fact, there were 2,200 cases just a few days ago at peak active cases. So suddenly, it not only is unwise, it actually looks irresponsible for our party workers, even wearing masks, to go out and mingle with people, because the risk of spreading or getting infected, spreading infection or getting infected is up again. Now, this is in Kerala. In other states, everyone will have to see what's realistically feasible. But by and large, I don't think there are too many parts of India today where you can get out onto the ground. Until we have election campaigns for state assemblies or local self-government elections, I don't think it would be wise for us to try and get out to get the message out. And thereafter, we should go and do it. And we should certainly, when COVID is over, we should redouble our efforts in the last few years of this administration, of this government, to show it's the fact that we represent a far better way of doing things than the present ruling party does.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir. I am Rohit. This is my wife, Nandini. We are from Bangalore. My question about the strategy of Congress, where we seem to be targeting Modi as a person more often than BJP as a party. I think we are doing the same mistake which Advani did in 2009, where he targeted Manmohan Singh ji and they lost. We did the same mistake in 2019, where instead of targeting BJP, where we have issues like smart city and Italian Marines and all those things, we don't go after that. Instead, we just go after Rafale or Surrender Modi, which are more personal in nature. What are your thoughts about that, sir?
I think there's a fair point, and we need to discuss it through within the party. That we need to have a broader messaging. I mean, I think one of the reasons that we attack Mr. Modi personally is because he's larger than life. The BJP projects him as this grand hero, as I said, this sort of hero on the white horse who's going to sort of solve all the problems of the nation. And therefore, to show that he actually has feet of clay is somewhat important for the party as well. I don't think we can say, no, Mr. Modi is untouchable. He's too high, too above. We won't criticize him. We will criticize him. But I agree with you, we need to say much more on the issues as well. And we need to attack the issues irrespective of whether Mr. Modi personally is identified with them or not. Now, partly there can be state level messaging. For example, in Madhya Pradesh, there is a criticism we didn't make more of the Vyapam scam. But that's a purely Madhya Pradesh issue. There you are attacking Shivraj Singh Chauhan, not Narendra Modi. But similarly in Kerala, of course, we have a different challenge. The Congress is fighting the government, which is led by the left, not by the BJP.
Yes.
In Bengal, the government is led by yet another party, the Trinamool. But the BJP is rising. So we now have to calibrate our message so we both block the BJP's rise and at the same time decide what kind of responsible opposition we are to those who are in power. So I think we have to calibrate our message. I would say that at the national level, Mr. Modi still remains the #1 target. But I agree with you, there are many national policies, either of the ruling party or of the government, that can and should be confronted head on with alternatives on our side. I mean, the truth is that, we actually have, giving you the example I mentioned earlier of how to actually buffer the poor of our country who have lost jobs and income during the COVID lockdowns. There, the Congress formula is clearly much better than anything the government has done. And we should be out there explaining, if we were in power, we would have given you 10,000 rupees in your Jan Dhan accounts. We would have protected your pensions. We would have ensured that those of you in employment, that we would guarantee salaries of the employers up to a certain point so they can actually make sure you're not dismissed from your job, etc., etc. We would have put more money into Unrega so that you actually have paid employment. So these are Congress approaches that the BJP has not only criticized with contempt in the past, but has been unable to adopt itself today. And that's why I would argue that for us, it's very important that we should absolutely clearly get that message across. We're not merely anti-Modi, we are for the people, and we have very clearly thought out recommendations for the people that we want the people to be able to benefit from. And that's why we are seeking their votes or their support.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Sajeev?
Hi.
Sanjeev?
Shashi, good evening. I'm Sanjeev Batra from AIPC Mumbai.
Hi, Sanjeev.
Hey, how are you
Good
doing?
to see you. Very pleased to have an AIPC man as well in the group.
I couldn't miss this opportunity to put a question to you. Why is the conflict resolution mechanism in the Congress party so slow? And, as to put it, as Kapil Sibal put it, why do we bolt the stables after the horses have run away? So in a way, we are more reactive than proactive. Why can't we somehow nip the problem in the bud?
Sanjeev, I think these are conversations that I would rather have in private than, with all of you, in a closed forum than in a public forum, because I think that we all have views about how things could be organized or conducted differently within the party. And I think it's fair to have those views. But at this point, I honestly think that it would be glib to derive sweeping conclusions from two individual cases that you're clearly thinking of, where factors relevant only to their particular circumstances may have been dominant.
No,
I'd
I
say the
agree.
media has been too quick to see this as the sign of some sort of pandemic of disenchantment sweeping the party. But from what I'm seeing and hearing in my daily interactions, that isn't the case. But we do need to promote more collegiality and consultation, and as you put it rightly, conflict resolution or problem solving. The fact is some institutional reforms would probably help, but those are best discussed within the party and not in a public forum. I might add that many of those leading the party today were young workers who rose through the democratic avenues available in the party. And there's no reason why the same can't happen again with a new generation. So I am not in any way sort of dismissing your question or the concerns behind it. But I genuinely believe that the party essentially has within it the talent and the capacity to revive. And that will involve certainly energizing the party organization where it's atrophied and doing some of the things your question hints at. But let's not, air any dirty linen in public when we actually have mechanisms within the party to try and get some of these things done better. But your concern is heard, noted, and will be taken up further.
Shashi, since this meeting is going to be behind closed doors where you're going to answer my question, just give me a quick answer to this. Do you see India moving from the right to the extreme right?
So this is in a public forum, no worry. The meeting behind closed doors will be some other time.
Right.
But the meeting that's going on now is a public meeting. And I want to say very sincerely that I don't even know what the BJP stands for other than bigotry. It claims to be a right-wing party, but it doesn't actually have any serious conservative agenda that you can understand. Its economic policy is a mishmash of protectionism promoted by the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, which is actually really old-fashioned leftism, not rightism. Its right-wing credentials are essentially of the cultural right rather than the economic right or the how can I put it, the geopolitical right. They are in many ways otherwise a fairly conformist party, but the one area where they seem to be radical is in their advocacy of Hindutva, this Hindi, Hindutva, Hindustan motto, which has animated them throughout their existence, and at the same time, their desire to convert India into a Hindu Rashtra rather than the pluralist, liberal, constitutionalist state that India has always been. And to my mind, this is something which I think one of the very early questioners today implied had seized the imagination of many people in the country. And he was saying that people are sort of voting on the basis of their religious preferences or prejudices. I think that is very important to contest. I've tried to do it, if you like, intellectually through my books, particularly Why I'm a Hindu and the Hindu Way. Rahul Gandhi has done it with his talks about Shaivism and his visits to temples. The whole idea is that actually the true believing Hindu should actually respect our view of what India is all about rather than the BJP's view. Because Hindutva is profoundly a betrayal of what Hinduism is all about. If we read Swami Vivekananda and what he taught the nation and the world about what Hinduism stands for, he talked about the Shiva Mahimna Stotram that says, just as various rivers flow straight and crooked down various hills to the same sea, so also all forms of worship reach the same divine. And Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahudavadanti. There is only one truth. The sages call it by many names. So the Hinduism that Vivekananda has taught us all is a Hinduism that accepts gracefully the existence of other faiths and respects them. In fact, he actually said in his famous speech in Chicago, I'm proud to speak to you of a faith that not just stands for tolerance, but for acceptance. And when you think about it, that's a very profound idea, because tolerance, you might mute the other mic of somebody else speaking, it'll be helpful. Tolerance is ultimately a patronizing idea. We're taught in school it's a virtue, that a tolerant king is actually a virtuous person because he indulges people who don't agree. But the truth is that the ideas of patronizing one, because the tolerant king is really saying, I have the truth, you are in error, and I will generously grant you the right to be wrong. Whereas what Vivekananda tells us Hinduism is about is actually acceptance, which says, I believe I have the truth, you believe you have the truth, I will respect your truth, please respect my truth. And to my mind, this kind of Hinduism is not the kind of cultural bigotry that the BJP is trying to teach us, which is actually the bigotry of the British football hooligan who says, my team is better than your team, and if you support another team, I'll hit you on the head. That's not Hinduism, but that's what the so-called cultural right of the BJP is all about. Whereas many of us practicing Hindus in the Congress party, believing Hindus, believe in a Hinduism of acceptance, and that is what we advocate. So I don't know about right and left and Hindu and non-Hindu and so on. All I can say is the Congress stands for an inclusive India, and very clearly the BJP does not. We stand for a pluralist India with mutual respect amongst communities. The BJP does not. Now, I'll take your next question, but I would urge the administrator to please silence the person who's having a conversation on the mic. A lady's voice has been coming in throughout. It will be very helpful if you made sure that was silenced. Thank you.
Thank you,
Request
Shashi, for your
everyone to mute yourself. Poonam Bharadwaj, please come.
Good evening, sir. I'm Poonam Bharadwaj from Himachal Pradesh, Shimla. And my question is, why is the Congress not clear about its objectives towards the common man so as to bring them to vote for it? And how can this be achieved?
Well, I think I've partly answered that question, Poonamji, because I've actually said that we stand for very, very concrete policies that benefit the common, the Aam Aadmi of the country. And frankly, the record during the 4 months of dealing with the COVID pandemic proves that it's a Congress party that has consistently advocated the right policies that benefit the masses. Now, we have unfortunately been restricted in how much we can communicate this to the public because of the lockdown and so on. But there is no question that on social media, in the mass media, our television spokesman, everybody has been getting this message across. And certainly, I've done my own part as much as I can. I think Rahul ji, as I mentioned earlier, has been particularly articulate on all these key issues and has put the message out. So all I can say is when the pandemic and the restrictions associated with the lockdowns are over, I'm very confident that we can go back to the people and say, listen, we asked for this. The government either did it late or didn't do it. And now, if we were in power, we would have done this and not merely demanded it from the government. Give us a chance to serve you better. And I think that's ultimately the message we have to take. But it'll have to be really at the grassroots. We'll have to go. Our organization will have to be revived. We'll have to be re-energized. And we'll have to go out very much in every village, every street, every booth of the country and say, this is what we have advocated for you, and now give us a chance to deliver it for you. I believe we can do that.
Thank you.
Mary?
Hi, Mr. Tharoor. This is Celine. And hi. My question is about your personal ideology after everything that we talked about Congress. Seeing your public stance on the Sabrimala issue, if and when a place of worship forbids a devotee of a lower caste, would you still call it a matter of sacredness and belief and not of class inequality?
Absolutely not. See, there are very important distinctions to be drawn. And I understand the feelings of some of the women on this issue, but I've also come to my position only after talking to a very large number of women, particularly in my constituency, to whom I'm accountable. Let me explain this. The Sabrimala position was very simply this. The Supreme Court said, gender distinctions don't apply, everyone should be free to go and worship. And I actually initially welcomed it. Many will be able to find my interviews to all the Malayalam channels on the day of the judgment and the couple of days after the judgment. Then I started getting a massive backlash from the women of my constituency. And so I went into Mount Vrat for a month on this subject and read everything I could about it and talked to as many people as I could about it. And basically what happened was, what people were saying to me was, if you are a woman who wants to worship Lord Ayyappa, there are literally hundreds of temples throughout Kerala where you can do that. But Sabrimala is associated with a certain set of beliefs. It's actually, and I've studied the history of it and even the rationalist view of how it happened. Essentially, this goes back about 1,000 years. And the belief is that Lord Ayyappa merged into an existing forest deity in the forest. And that one of his conditions was that he did not want to be seen and did not want to see any woman of marriageable age. There is Mallika Puratama who was in love with him, a princess, and he said, the day that a woman of marriageable age or reproductive age sees me, I will then marry you, but I'm going to remain a bachelor and a celibate. This is a huge, big myth that believers believe. So as a result, the temple of Mallika Puratama stands opposite the Ayyappa temple in Sabrimala. And the prohibition exists on the grounds that the women who actually believe this legend would not want to go and defile the temple, whereas the only ones who want to go would be those who don't take this whole set of beliefs associated with the temple seriously. And then I began to think, I mean, I went to a couple of Jesuit schools. My Catholic friends, for example, are certainly very committed to gender equality. But they practice a faith in which it is impossible for a woman to be a bishop, to be a priest. And I asked myself, why is that possible? And the answer very simply is that religion has different rules. And then I realized you can go, for example, to America and you can sue a club that says women are free to join but not to become office bearers. But you cannot sue the Catholic Church because women are free to worship but not become priests or bishops. And then I accepted that there are certain kinds of conventions and principles associated only with religion that are best determined by the believers of that religion itself. And those believers will undoubtedly over time change their beliefs. They will reform themselves when they do. For example, the Anglican Church in recent years has permitted female priests and female bishops. The Catholics have not. But the Anglicans were in exactly the same place as the Catholics till just a couple of decades ago. So believers can evolve, believers can change their own practices. And one day, a whole bunch of Hindu Ayyappa devotees unanimously decide that they're going to have a different practice. I'm sure many of us would welcome it. But when it comes to something like caste discrimination, you're talking about something that is fundamentally violative of a principle of socio-economic equality that the Constitution actually pledges the nation to redress. This has nothing to do with scriptural sanction, because in very many cases, there are religious leaders who have argued that there is as much evidence in the scriptures against caste discrimination. In fact, there is more evidence against caste discrimination than there is for. So within the religion itself, there is very little serious support for discriminating on the basis of caste and denying people access to temples or wells. That is a social misbehavior which the state has every right to prevent. Now, you asked me what my own beliefs are. I consider myself a classic liberal in the sense that I have not only had a political conviction about liberalism, and I'm also economically liberal, which perhaps puts me slightly to the center right of the Congress party, because I believe very much in the liberalization policy we adopted in 1991, all of that. But I'm also liberal in my normal human interactions and social interactions. I believe you must accept people as you find them. I don't believe that it's my place to tell people to be who they're not or to be something else. I accept who they are. I accept their right to be, to say, and to become whatever they want to be, provided they don't hurt others in the process. So my final yardstick as a liberal is do what you like, say what you like, be what you like, as long as you don't hurt somebody else's right to be all of those things as well. And once you come to that principle, then I think you are perfectly clear. Because if you're denying a Dalit the right to go to a temple, then you are actually denying him his right as a human being to enjoy the same worship that you do. Whereas if you deny a woman believer the right to go to the temple, you are actually upholding the belief she claims to have. Whereas if you are denying a woman non-believer the right to go to a temple, you are protecting actually the religious belief of the devotees of that temple, who feel that it would be sacrilege if a non-believing woman came there. Now, these are the kinds of distinctions that one has to draw when one spends an awful lot of time thinking about a particularly complex issue. But my fundamental orientation, and anyone who knows me knows this, is to be non-judgmental, to be accepting, to be inclusive in everything that I say, do, or believe.
Bismi Krishna.
Hello, Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, good. But I'm Bismi Krishna. I'm from your own constituency.
Wonderful.
And thank you very much for all the good works you do to us.
Thank you.
I'm so lucky. We are so lucky to have you as our MP. Okay, my question is, we often face threats of shooting from our own leaders. What is the constructive way to deal with such threats? Do you agree that the Congress party must represent something that people crave, respect, and trust? If so, what and how can that be achieved?
Thank you, Bismi. And this will probably have to be the last question since we've come out to the end of our allotted hour. Let me say very clearly that that actually brings us back to where we began. What does the Congress party represent? I would argue that it's very clear. If I were to tick off the elements, we represent an inclusive India. We represent a progressive India. That is, we want change that will include more people, embrace more people in the narrative, the great adventure of India's progress and growth. We need to be, broadly speaking, liberal. Some are perhaps ultra-liberal or leftist. That's their privilege. But we have to be a party that actually accepts that India is a very diverse country with wide varieties of practice, language, and so on. To give an example, we would never want to support a policy that thrusts Hindi down the throats of people in the South. Now, the BJP in the new education policy has finally come around to accepting that. But that wasn't their approach until now. And so it's very important that we remain liberal and respectful of diversity. We must, I believe, stand by the need to liberalize our economy and grow our economy so more people have more job opportunities, more opportunities for growth. But we must be committed to social justice so that the fruits and revenues that come from liberalization and growth can be distributed by the government to those who are unable to benefit directly from all the fruits of liberalization and growth. If you can give people a leg up, I said once in Parliament that the magic of the market will not appeal to people who cannot afford to enter the marketplace. And that's my point. Give them a leg up, give them some welfare, give them some essential supplies, food, essential, give them a chance to work through Manrega. And at the end, they will become consumers one day if you've given them that support to enter the marketplace. Then individual freedom, I think, is very important. I don't think that our party should be running governments that interfere in the kitchen or the bedroom of individuals. People should be free to love who they want to love, eat what they want to eat, cook what they want to cook, etc. And that's something which, unfortunately, our present government does not respect the individual freedom of Indian citizens. We must be patriotic, and I believe we have a great record of nationalism. We are the party that fought for India's freedom. All the nationalist heroes were Congress people, and we have won the right to defend India and India's national security through successful battles in 1948 in Kashmir, in 1971 over Bangladesh. We have a credibility as a party that is committed to protecting national security. But equally, we must care about human security. It's not enough to only criticize terrorism and to safeguard the nation against the terrorism of jihadis. What about the daily terror of hunger, of ill health, of pandemic disease, of not having enough to eat, of malnutrition, of poor human development? Those are things also that constitute human security, and the Congress must work for that. So a Congress that does all of these things and respects India as a plural nation, that we can represent everyone and we can reflect the diversity of India in our inclusive politics. That is this very broad-minded Congress party that I believe we should all stand for. We have been able to, as you know, communicate that message effectively in Kerala, in Punjab, in Chhattisgarh, in many parts of the country, many parts of Maharashtra, many parts of Madhya Pradesh. I think that what we have to do now is to build on that and communicate this effectively everywhere in the country. We are offering a positive alternative, not merely negative criticism. And this positive alternative is a vision that most people in India would find attractive if they took the trouble to think about it. No one is born intolerant. No one is born hating their neighbor. Most Indians get along with people who are not like them. Fair enough, I've often talked about the fact that we're like a thali. We're not a melting pot. But like a thali, we have very many different sumptuous dishes in different bowls. Because we're in different bowls, we don't necessarily flow into the next. We don't mix necessarily with the next. But we belong together on the same plate. And we combine on the palate to give you a satisfying repast. That is the India the Congress party speaks for. Whereas the BJP would like to lump us all together into a khichdi and oblige everyone to be like their version of Indianness and their version of Hinduness, which I believe is a very bigoted, narrow-minded version, which is a distortion of either what Hinduism is all about or what India is all about. And therefore, the Congress party has a better idea to offer the people, and we should offer it in every one of our languages, in every one of our states, in the streets, and above all, the hearts of the people of India. So that's my answer to you, Bismi. Thank you all very much.
Dr. Tharoor, just one last question from Chetan Shah from Pune. Just one last question.
All right, it's past 8 o'clock, Ajit, but all right, 1 minute.
I know, just one last question. Chetan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Tharoor. Thank you so much for this last question. I just want to first of all convey a message from my son who just told me that he loved your performance on the one mic stand and loved it, loves to see it again and again once more. Right, and my main question is that what is it that makes young leaders quit the Congress party and either join the BJP or any other of the parties that are around? And what the Congress traditionally has been a collection of great minds. You know, we haven't seen that lately happening. So, I mean, what is the reason for that, and how can we make it happen?
Well, number one, I think, as I said earlier in response to somebody else's question, Chetan, I think that this is a generalization from a couple of cases. I would disagree that there are young people leaving the party in some sort of pandemic of disenchantment. I would say that on the contrary, most young people have stayed with the party. And what's striking is that the Youth Congress, for example, has been particularly vibrant and lively in the course of the last year, including during the lockdown. And I mentioned that in an earlier answer. As to the great minds answer, I genuinely think that the Congress party generates more ideas than the rest of the parties I can see in the country put together. If you read the books we're saying, if you read the interviews we're giving, if you read the speeches made by so many of our leaders, Kapil Sibal has good books, Manish Tiwari has good books, P. Chidambaram has good books and a regular column in the Express. I have now 20 books, most of which deal with issues that concern the country and its future. I mean, I honestly think that we are generating ideas left, right, and center. If the criticism I can accept is that perhaps we haven't communicated those ideas effectively enough. But I won't accept the charge that we don't have enough great minds in the party. I would say there are very many extremely good, educated, smart minds coming up with really worthwhile ideas that can help influence the country for the better and towards the future. We need to revive the party organization and the institutions within the party so we communicate those more effectively. And that's a challenge that appeals not just to those of us who are representing the party in parliament or in institutions of the party, but to all of you who care for these values and principles. Those who are leaving, sadly, have abandoned those values and principles in the quest for higher office or their personal benefits. Whereas those of us who are not looking for that kind of benefit, but are looking to create a better India for all of us, we have a job to do. And I believe the Congress party is the right vehicle within which to do it. Let's fight for a better India.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Tharoor. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for spending the time to be with us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I request all others to stay back. All Idea of Congress members to stay back. Shankar, you can stop the live recording.
Can I stop the live recording?
Yes, you please stop the live recording.
Please change the host permission for me.
Sorry?
Change the host permission for me. I need host.
Yeah. What do I need to do?
Okay, no problem. I will take care, sir. Few
Yeah,
seconds.
please take care. Okay, and others, please stay back. I'm putting on a gallery view. Those who have time, please do stay back. We would like to discuss certain things, what we plan to do for IDEO Congress. So
Still
kindly
on.
stay back.
We are still live, sir.
In case